More than a more than a dot.
Welcome to More Than a Dad Podcast. I'm your host, Lou Mobley. I'm joined by the coolest guy on earth, Dre Moore.
What's good?
And today we have a very, very special guest, a wife, a mother of three, a business owner. She's giving me all types of More Than a Mom vibes.
Okay.
We got Alia in the building. What's up, man?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here.
We always ask, how's mom life?
Mom life, whew. Mom life is a roller coaster. It's ups, it's downs, but it's enjoyable.
It's enjoyable. How many kids you have?
I have three.
And what's the ages?
I have a 13-year-old, a 9-year-old, and an 11-month-old.
Oh, so you started over.
Yeah, over.
Talk about that, just the dynamics of having basically teenagers and
It's good this time around. It's good this time around. I would say because I'm just at a different place in my life. So I'm able to like really enjoy my children at their levels, at their ages, and things like that. Where before, I kind of was just new at the mom thing. I was young, trying to find myself, and um, I wasn't really present as much as I would have wanted to be there. So now I'm able to kind of just like really experience motherhood a little different now and really enjoy it. And just watching them grow.
what's some of the challenges right now juggling it all?
Juggling it. Really juggling it. You know, like being a business owner, having a husband, having three, children with different needs and things like that. And just trying to like, cater to everybody and still, you know, cater to myself at the same token. So I would say that's like the most challenging thing is just juggling it all.
We keep calling you a business owner. Let's talk
hmm
about exactly what you do.
Okay, so I own two childcare centers in West Philadelphia. One name is Smart Beginnings Early Learning Center, and then the other one is the Learning Institute of Philadelphia, which is a nonprofit at-risk program for youth.
Okay, and talk about how did you get into that?
Okay, so I got into childcare. I actually took a job way back when, about 13, 14 years ago, working at an after school program in North Philly. And that was like really my first experience working with children. I wasn't really a children's person, to be honest with you. I was in school for nursing. And just working with the population of children that I was working with, I realized that it was a need. It was a need for like teachers and people who cared for children, but not only that, at the foundational level. So the idea of the child care center came about from my supervisor. She was like, "You should open up a daycare," and I'm like, "What? Like that's not even me." Like, and
Right.
so I like looked into it. And I was like, "Oh, okay, I could do that." But at the time, I still was in school, so I like called my mom up. I'm like, "Listen, I want to open up a daycare. You got the degree. Can we do it?" She was like, "Sure." So like literally the next day, I went out and I bought all this stuff. Like I decorated her whole living room. I'm ready to start daycare. So she comes in, she's like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "Well, you said we could do the daycare. I researched everything. I got it all together. Like, let's do it." And she was like, "Take it off my walls." Like, and so she was like, "We're gonna do it the right way." So we looked for a building and we happened to find a building. And then in 2009, we opened up. And the rest was like history.
What were some of the challenges like being a new business owner at the time, and like some of the struggles? Like I guess like I'm sure it was like all types of like paperwork and permits and like legal things you probably need to get in place. Like,
hmm
was that stuff like accessible, or that was like hard to find, or like trial by error?
We were fortunate enough to like just run in and meet a lot of people who kind of helped us along the way. When we got into it, um, it was challenging because they had like a budget impasse. So they weren't paying child care providers at the time. Everything was on hold because the state was like negotiating their budget. So we got in and we weren't being paid. So we had an operating center. We had bills, expenses, and everything like that. My mom had left her job with Social Security. We had no income. So we started off really flat broke. We put everything into the business and we had nothing. But our landlord was very very helpful. He kind of like put the bills on the back burner. He kind of paid our bills for a little bit until we got on our feet. And then once the budget and pass was over, we were able to just progress on.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so can you like elaborate more on like what it is to deal with at-risk youth? Because they are like older kids, and you like how do you get a kid into like a program like that? Like how do you find that kid?
So we really don't necessarily find them. They kind of find us. We really service parents who are just looking for childcare, to be honest with you, and it kind of fall into our lap. But we do like surveys and things like that early on to kind of find out what the needs of the families are. And we kind of take that information near and kind of build our program around that.
Okay, so it's like actually like catered to the kid, like and the kid's exact needs.
Mm-hmm. Our program is really family driven and child centered.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we were talking a little bit yesterday, and you were trying to break down all the parenting styles to me. So like this is the formal part of it. I want us to get educated as parents because I don't think we even know that all these styles exist.
Right.
So can you tell us what all the parenting styles are?
Sure. So there are about now there are like 5 parenting styles, but the main 4 parenting styles that we have are we have the permissive parent. And that style pretty much means that the parent really allows the child to really drive the relationship. It's whatever the child wants. They kind of overindulge with their child, giving in to whatever they want. There's no rules, no boundaries, things like that. Then you have the neglectful parenting style, which that person is emotionally detached from the child. That person really has limited communication with the child. There's really no connection there. And that child is really like just a loner to themselves. That's pretty much how that parenting style works. And then you have I always get this mixed up, the authoritarian style. And that's more like a dictatorship. So that's like my way or the highway. That parents like really strict rules. That parent is a person who really doesn't listen to the child's needs, wants, or interests, and kind of just is, like I said, my way or no way. Those children tend to grow up to become people pleasers because how they learn to adapt to that style is they become obedient. And that's the way of getting love and affection from their parent. So because they do that when they go on to get in other relationships, whether it's friendships or, romantic relationships, they take that same attachment style and they take it on into those relationships, learning to please those people by being obedient to whatever the demands are in order for them to get what it is that they ultimately seek, which is love. And then you have the ultimate parenting style, which is authoritative. I'm sorry, I always get this tongue tied, but y'all could Google it. And so what that style is, it's a balance. And what it offers is the parent really listens to the child, their wants and needs. They give them boundaries, but they allow them to explore as well. It's a lot of open communication, and the discipline with that parenting style is more like I'm gonna talk you through it as opposed to just punishing you with no understanding of why I'm punishing you. So that's like ultimately where we should all want to strive to, because that creates well-balanced children.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. I never even knew that. This is like new.
Right. It's crazy because when I started to like really research it and learn it like through school and stuff like that, I looked at the parenting styles that I grew up with, and then I looked at how they played a factor into my relationships, whether it's my friendships or it was like romantic relationships. And so it's like, when we're raising children, when we're educating children, even if like as a child in the center, like what is your parenting style at home? Do you take that parenting style in to work with you? And when you do you understand that the repercussions of those parenting styles leads to certain outcomes? And so you got to be intentional when you are teaching as well as when you're parenting children. Yeah.
Can you be multiple parenting styles?
I believe you can.
Okay.
I believe you can.
Like if depending on the kid, does it change or does it just change like because you're just different at different times?
I think the kid really,
Okay.
everybody's different. Everybody's makeup is different. I know for me and myself, like I parent all of my children different. They have different wants and needs. My daughter really likes to like be to herself, right?
Right.
And so you would think, okay, I would lean towards more the permissive parenting style with her because she really don't want that interaction. But then again, I know like I still have to give her that, right? Because just because she don't want it, she don't know what she needs,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so I got to still kind of force some other, interactions with her to make her realize like, okay, well, you still need that balance.
Right. Yeah, I just asked because like I'm different with like all my kids, like
Hmm.
because they respond differently to different interactions. Like my
Right,
oldest son, he real timid. So like if you raise your voice, he gonna you basically do what you tell him to do. Like you raise your voice too much, he might start crying.
right.
Um, my youngest son, he like real aggressive.
Hmm.
Rough.
Yeah, rough. So like you telling something, he would just be like no, or like I'm not doing that. So like I gotta be a lot more stern with him. I try to explain things to both of them so they
Right.
understand it, but I gotta be way more forceful with him than I do with him. So that's why.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. I think the biggest thing is having that open communication,
Okay.
like understanding their interests, understanding their needs as individuals, and just kind of talking them through it. And I think that's where we miss a lot in our culture. It's like it's my way or the highway. Like growing up, that was like the parenting style for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Your grandparents. It's like kids should be seen and not heard. It
Yeah.
was all of those types of things, and we grew up with that same understanding. And it's not until like in recent years people were starting to say, hold up, that's causing a lot of trauma, like that's
Right.
causing a lot of issues when we're telling our children like to suppress your emotions, like to be seen and not heard. And so it's like we have to give our children a voice,
Right.
and they only are going to learn how to be good citizens and adults if we allow them to explore that while we are here and we're able to kind of mold them, right? So it's like you can't say, I want my child to be confident, and you don't do any intentional work in building their confidence. So,
Makes sense.
yeah, that's how it works.
You stole one of my words from me. So I wanted to talk to you about. I wanted to talk to you about traumas and like how they affect children and like what are some of the key traumas that sometimes you see in some of your child care centers.
Right. So, I mean, again, I'm dealing in a high risk population. I'm in West Philly. Like, so, I see a lot of trauma that my children are exposed to. Um, we really became more like a trauma informed center in recent years. I was doing some trainings with an organization that kind of really was a interest of mine. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to kind of implement this in our program. And I learned about this assessment. It's called the ACEs, which is an assessment that healthcare providers use where they look at the level of trauma that children are exposed to under the age of 18. And based on a number of points that you hit, determines the more inclined you'll be to develop like chronic diseases. So
Okay.
trauma is um, a direct correlation to your health care. So those are the things we take into consideration in our center. So, like again, I said we do a entrance assessment, and
Okay.
in that entrance assessment, we're asking them, you know, do you have a parent that's incarcerated? Do you have mental illness from a parent in your family? Have you dealt with death? Have you what's another trauma? Anybody in your family have a chronic illness that the child is like in direct contact with all the time? So a lot of things that we think are normal. A lot of things that we think are normal, that we kind of just cope with as adults can be really traumatic to children. So, like again, we take that information that we get, and then we look at how we can support the family through literature, through referral resources to kind of help them help their children, because we do the work in the center,
Right.
but we have to also help the parents do the work at home so that our work won't be in vain.
Right. Now, what are some of these resources that they can use to like get the literature from? Like, where can they find it, or where would you?
So our parents,
Yeah, right. Where would
people
you
who
send
are
it?
enrolled in our program, they can get the resources from us. So we have different partnerships with a lot of different organizations.
Okay.
Some of the things that we do internally, we have a mindful coach
Okay.
who comes in, and our staff had access to that. So our staff work with them to the mindful coach to deal with their own personal things, right? But how it's tied into the children is because, just like parents, whatever struggles and things that you have, it is then filtered down onto the children, right?
Right.
So now we're making sure that our staff are like mentally capable and prepared to do the job. We're making sure that they are stable and things of that nature. And then from that point, it filters on to the children. They love their job. They love coming to work because they're getting the supports they need. Other things we do is we have a yoga instructor come in every Monday. And she works with our students just to kind of transition them back in from off the weekend. And so, I mean, it's been really, really, really helpful for the teachers.
Right.
The parents have been enjoying it, and the kids, like, they go home and do it at home.
Yeah, your business model A1. That's crazy.
Yeah. So,
Like-
and we even do it like at our staff meetings. Before we start our staff meetings, we had a yoga coach come in. We start our staff
that's
meeting.
what
We
I'm
do
saying,
that,
right.
and then from there we get into business. So
Yeah, no, that's dope, because a lot of, even with like in business, you know, like when you run in a business, a lot of people just think about the customer.
right.
Like, it's like the customer got to be pleased, or the product got to be this, but you actually cultivating your staff to be a certain way, so then you can ensure that the product is A1.
Right. And
That's
it wasn't
crazy.
always the thought.
How you
First, we
develop
thought
that?
it was the children. Like, you have a child care center, so the children is like the driving force, right?
Right.
But you have to take that same thought process that the family, right? The family is the extension of the child. If the family is not stable, then the child is not stable. But the teacher is also an extension of the child. She spends
Right.
just as much time as the parents, as the teachers.
Right.
So it's like everybody has to have like a strong mental. Everybody has to have the resources, and we can't do for one and not the other, because then it's off balance.
That's dope.
Mhm.
That's all right.
You stole another one of my things. You
Ooh,
just,
Yeah, she
I'm
running
on
right. She running
point.
right too.
yeah, we must have just had the great questions lined up for you.
I'm
'cause
telling you, it was meant
Nah.
to be.
You know, it's almost like we on the same page without talking or something. No,
Telekinesis, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah, that's a
no.
fact.
I just wanted to talk to you as a business owner of a child care center. Like, just talk to me like some of the challenges managing the teachers. Like, have you ever like, I'm pretty sure all the teachers are not the same.
Hmm.
And how do you get them to align with your business and like some of the troubles you have had over the years?
Right. Like you said, it's a challenge dealing with adults. They are big children, right? But I think it's knowing who you are as a business owner, knowing your business and knowing what your mission is, and finding people who align with that. And when they don't align with it, then you know that you have to separate ties. But those people who align with those missions, with your mission, then it's like, okay, this is the mission, and this is the, the plan. You either fall in line, or you don't. I'm sorry, like, it's large, but that's the place that I got to, right? At one
Right.
time, I was like trying to save people. Like, I wanted them to like stay because they had good skills, but the people themselves weren't like genuine people, right? But you need authentic people in that position, because if they don't represent your brand, your mission well,
Right.
and if they can't authentically do their job, then children can see that. And it causes a lot of confusion. So they need realness. They need people who are truly there for their benefit. And so again, if they don't align with the mission, then it's like it's a no go for me.
Yeah, I mean they're a representation of you. They're an
Right.
extension of what you're trying to put out there.
Mhm.
No, hold on, Dre. I wanted to ask, like, just even following up, like, not to be ignorant to anything, but like the qualifications for the teachers, like, what are because I know like some daycares have like certain amount of stars because they got some certain amount of
Yeah.
teachers that got degrees and that.
Mhm.
Like, can you break that down for us as parents?
Sure. So both of my centers are Star Forest centers. And pretty much what that means is that you have met a certain amount of expectations that the state has, that says that you're quality. Now, centers do their own thing, but at my center, our teachers do have degrees in early childhood education or education.
Okay.
Our assistant teachers have CDAs.
Okay.
And then we have a program where we assist teachers in going back to school or going to school to further their education. So that's pretty much how it goes. Outside of that, you need clearances. So you need child abuse clearance, criminal clearance, FBI clearance, sex offender registry clearance. You need a TB health assessment, things like that. And then at least 2 years of experience working with children.
Solid.
Yeah, it's dope. Have you ever had a time where like there was an issue between like a parent and a teacher, and you had to like step in and resolve it?
All the time.
All the
That's a
time.
part of the game. Yeah, that's all the time. Again, that was earlier on, really,
Okay.
in starting a business. Most of our teachers have been with us for at least 6 or more years. Our teacher that's been with us the longest has been with us for 10 years, going on 11 years now.
Right.
So they kind of know our model. And so we don't really get into those types of things any longer. It's almost like again, we had that mindfulness coach coming in. We kind of know each other's temperament. So it's certain things that we don't have to deal with because it's like, okay, well, this parent is like really, this parent is really ignorant. Can you handle that person? So when that person comes, then a teacher might just come in and say, oh, such and such will work with you today, or she'll be able to answer your questions. So it's just like knowing knowing what you're capable of, and knowing the people who those parents are relatable to, and just kind of allowing them to deal with that to kind of circumvent certain issues from occurring.
Okay.
Mhm.
And well, I'm sure it's people that work at your center that have kids that attend your center.
They kind of aged out now,
All right, but
we did
at the
have
time you
yes.
had that. Was that ever difficult? Was that more difficult than like dealing with a parent that's just on the outside versus you have a parent? That person is a parent and they work here, so it's like you got to separate the employee from the parent.
I mean, it was challenging. I think because a lot of times it's like we kind of like a family oriented center, and so sometimes it's like, well, the child is an extension of my own personal family. At least I look at it like that because I look at my staff almost like their family. We do a
Right.
lot of things together outside of work. So you do have issues where as though, it becomes difficult to discipline. When I say discipline, it's just like correcting the
Right.
child. When they have the parent there, because then it's like certain things children do with their parents or their parents allow is not always allowed in the center. And so you have those issues. But again, them understanding the model and things like that, sometimes they just allow us to just deal with it, and then they kind of remove themselves from the situation.
Right.
And
Yeah, I
allow
just
us to
had to
handle
ask
that.
because I had like my youngest son, his mom worked at a daycare, so it was always like a blurred line
Mhm.
between like her working there and like him going there. So like when he would get into stuff, they would just like bring him and put
To
him in
her.
her classroom, and it's
Right.
like it's counterproductive because
Definitely.
in the real world, his mom isn't gonna be there
Right.
to circumvent the situation, but because she's here, that's just y'all easy out, and it's
Mhm.
like that's really not working.
I
Like,
would prefer to not necessarily have staff children at the center.
right.
Yeah.
I'm glad you just took a side on that because I was like, I'm like, she's playing in the middle of this really
Yeah,
good.
you got to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you gotta have a side.
Yeah, no, I have a side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it was a bad joint. It was like terrible. It got to the point where like when it came to him, and even it's kind of still like that to this day. When he has issues, they just don't bring it to her. They discuss it with me, so that way it's not even like you
Yeah.
gotta have that thing of like she works here too, so we gotta treat it a certain way. Like no, just deal with me. Like I'm the parent. I don't work here. Treat me like you would treat any other
Right.
parent that's in here. So
Right.
let's just deal with me. So that's how the situation ended up getting handled. But without that, it was just like, oh, we'll just take him to her.
No, just we're a dad show, so I gotta get my dad angle going.
Okay, let's go.
My dad,
So like we always pride ourselves saying like I feel like our generation of dads are a lot more active, right?
Mhm.
I just wanted to know over your 14-year career, have you seen like a uptick in like dad involvement at your center, or is it been consistent the whole time, or?
It's been really consistent. We've always had families who either co-parents or were married who actually attended our center, which was surprising. I thought because based on what society says,
Right.
but it's a lot of females that co-parents, a lot of dads that want to be involved, and I would say for the most part, our fathers are more accessible and available than the moms. I mean, the moms are there, they're working,
Right.
they're there, but we pretty much deal more with the dads. They kind of either have the freedom or they're just more available to be there. So our
That's
dads are like super. We
Yeah.
enjoy having them a
Shout
part
out
of
to
the
the
center.
dads.
I tell you, every time I drop my kid off, right? Drop my kids off, I always acknowledge, I like count the dads that I see. And then the days that I go and it's like a bunch of moms, I'm like, yeah, we outnumbered. But I be
Yeah.
hyped, when I be seeing the dads to the point where like I go out my way to speak to them, like, you know what I mean? I go out my way to like acknowledge them, like, yo, we doing this.
Yeah, that's the
We
thing.
also had males working our center.
Oh, how's that?
How's that?
Yeah, how is that?
So initially, it's really like shocking to parents, right? It's always like, I don't want him to work with my daughter, or I don't want him to change my daughter, and things like that, or what's his role? Parents are really like, it's like this thing, where as though a man shouldn't be a teacher, but as the time goes on and they get to learn him and his personality, and he's also a dad, right? So he's like a big nurturer as well as a firm
Right.
male, right? And so he offers that balance in the classroom. It's like a mother-father relationship in the classroom that he's in, and they have that balance because he himself is a parent. And then parents grow to love him.
Right.
The kids love him. I mean, he's like a big toy to them.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy. I always look at I don't know why I do it, bro. I don't probably get us canceled anyway. I always look at the guys weird when I see him working in the daycare. Like, man, I don't know. I don't like that.
Listen, he's been with us for 7 years, and he's like one of the best teachers we got.
Yeah, that's dope. No, I just like that's just the optics. You know how like when you see something that's outside of the norm. Like my oldest son is 13 now, so like I've been going in and out of daycares for a long time. It's rare that you see a guy working in
We
the daycare.
always had a guy.
Right,
working
and that's
there.
crazy.
But you're a dad, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
I'm
it's
not saying he can't
I
do
know,
it.
but it's just like that's the mind frame I try to get parents to
Yeah.
understand. Like, your child has a dad, right?
Right.
So what's the difference?
People
It's
have
the
brought
same
the issue
thing.
to you?
Yeah. They
Oh.
brought that issue to me, but we can't discriminate, and we
Right.
won't discriminate. I feel like the balance is needed. I feel
That's
like
true.
the male presence is needed. A lot of children are around a lot of female presence very often. Some children, that might be their only experience with a male figure. So I'm glad that we have that.
It's crazy because they'll say the same thing about like male teachers, like at the grade school level.
Mhm.
Like we
Right.
need more male teachers, but what's the difference if the teachers at the daycare level?
Yeah,
Like you
that's
said, the
true.
changing thing. I guess I got a daughter. I'll be like,
Yeah, right. See, like that
Right,
makes it,
right.
You know what I
makes it a
mean?
bit of an
Right.
issue.
I mean, and I get that. And so if a parent say that that's not something that they want, that's not something that they want.
Right.
Right?
That's
But
true.
there is that shortage, right? Like it's like people talk about it all the time, just in regular school. Like, it's not enough men in the school.
Mm-hmm.
It's always just the gym teacher. But what, all the other subjects and all the rest of
Right.
the hours of the blocks of the day, where the men teachers at. So I understand. I think I don't know. That's kind of cool. That's unique. Like you said, you're not going to discriminate in, like, especially in a time like this.
Right.
Yeah, but that's even that's crazy. Yeah, because I just seen a guy in Ashton the other day. They just hired a guy, and I'm like, man, I don't know where they found Cuz.
He like teacher / security.
Yeah, both is like 6'5". He like, hey, boy, like played in the NBA or something. He dumb tall in this joint running around with the kids. I'm like, it's crazy.
And they love it. They
Yeah.
love it. All that male energy. I'm sure they having a good old time.
Yeah, that's a fact. Yeah, because even like my youngest son, he got he just was saying like he real aggressive. So he actually was diagnosed with ODD.
Okay.
So he had a worker, and he had like 2 female workers, and like he was just like way too much for him, like too aggressive, too violent, and they really couldn't deal with him. And he got a male worker, big boy, and like he loved him, like, and it's crazy, like how you just expressed that dynamic, like it was like a totally different thing, like so. It's real.
Right.
And speaking of that, how do y'all deal with like kids with special needs and stuff like that?
Oh my goodness, we love children with special needs. I know it sounds crazy, but it's like I have a son with special needs.
Okay.
My son was diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia, right?
Okay.
And so I really have a personal connection with children with special needs, but we've always had children with special needs, so it's kind of now been like our niche.
Okay.
We dealt with children with autism, ODD, ADHD, you name it. We had children who had missing limbs, like the whole nine. So it's like they need a place. They need a place
Right.
where they can learn, where they are celebrated, where they are included. And I find that it's a lot of places that do a disservice to their population. So
Right.
for us, we always welcome them children because we know that they need a safe place where they can also learn and flourish.
Yeah, that's true.
What are some of the things you do? Like, I'm assuming that they're just in the classroom with the rest of the teachers, or do they have their own classroom? Or
So no, they're in the classroom with the other students and the teachers. Some children who might have extra services, they might transport out to Elwyn and then come back in for the remainder of the day. But we also welcome in support therapists and things of that nature. So they come in, they work with our teachers. We create, they create plans, or they have IEPs and
IEPs.
things like that. And then our teachers kind of sit in on those meetings. Our directors go to the actual IEP meetings and things like that, and kind of advocate with the parents. A lot of our parents are not knowledgeable about, IEP meetings, their rights and things like that. And so we kind of help them navigate through that whole system and getting them the supports that they need. And then we take that information and then we infuse it into our curriculum to make sure that they are also being serviced here and at home.
Dope. Yeah, because I've experienced, like, I went through this process a lot with actually with both my children. And that's big because you don't know your rights in that. Like, I know my rights in that, and I know, like, all the idea process and everything that entails in it, just because my children, have these issues. And a lot of people don't, and they're not knowledgeable about it. Like, I had a situation with my oldest son where he was getting speech therapy, and I was going to say he finished it. He finished speech therapy, he was talking fine, but the speech therapist recommended an occupational therapist for like his emotional, social and emotional skills and stuff like that. And the principal and them was just like against it. They was just like, oh no, he don't need it, and they cut the services.
Right.
I was young at the time. I'm probably like 23, maybe 24, somewhere in there. And like I didn't even know that like you even can fight that. Like I just thought it was just like, oh, they said he don't need it, and it was done. It was signed, sealed, it was over. And it took me to be well older and beyond that to even figure out like, oh, you could have fought that.
Right.
And then you got to go redo the process all over again because they make you start from the once they cut it off, they make you start it all over from the beginning. Now you got to get the ball rolling again. It was like it's definitely a thing. So like definitely got to educate people on their rights and, you know, what services you're entitled to and what you can get and, you know, what you can ask for. There's no limit to the things you can ask for when it comes to your kids.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Um, one of the things we talked about the other day was like how custody is, you know, and having a daycare like conflict, you know, and
Hmm.
you felt like I felt like you had a lot of game to share for the parents, you know, when going through something like that with the two parents and the custody issues.
Right. We have a lot of peers who come to us, and they have issues with custody. Well, actually, they have no custody in place. They get into a situation with the other party, and then it's like, okay, he can't come pick up no more. So don't release him. And it's like, well, we don't have the authority to not release a child to their parent
Right.
unless you have paperwork, and it has to be court ordered. And so a lot of parents, they get upset. It's like, well, that's my child. You know, I birthed them. And it's like, well, listen, if you want to restrict the father, that's your choice, but you have to do it the right way. And you have to go down to the courts and you have to file a petition. And so a lot of times we do help our parents. If that's a need and that's something that they want, then our job is just to provide them the education and help them. We can't really get into personally, don't do. Like, that's not our position or our place. But we do offer some advice. You know, you might want to try to work something out and negotiate an arrangement, because at the end of the day, it's about the best interest of the child. You know, it's not our
Right.
own personal thing as long as they're not in jeopardy. So again, we show them how to fill out a petition, and we support them through their process of finding resources, obtaining lawyers and things like that, in order for them to be able to go forth with their process.
Like, is that common? Is that common for a parent to say like, don't release them to the dad? Like, is that a
It's
common?
very common. I mean, it's so common that people will take their children out of the program just so
For
that the
real.
dad will not have access to them and go someplace else. And it's really hurtful because it's all of the transition,
Right.
right? That's traumatic in itself. It's like you uproot me from a place where I feel safe, where I'm learning, where I've had friends and people that I know, and you take me someplace else because of the conflict that I'm already exposed to at home. And so now I'm in a new setting. I'm dealing with the conflict between you two, and and then it's just traumatic as a child to
Right.
have to experience that. So we always try to talk to our parents and just like, listen, when you come in an enrollment process, we let them know up front. We do not withhold children from their parents unless you have a custody order. If you introduce us to the father and you put his name on the paperwork, as long as he come with ID and we establish that he's the father, we're going to always release them. So if you want to get that situated beforehand, please do, because we can't be in the middle of that.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't even know how they would even try to hold y'all like how they even gonna hold y'all accountable for something like that.
Well, you know what? I think people really just look at childcare as a babysitting service. They don't look at it as a business,
I'm not your
right?
homie.
And so it's like, I pay you. Don't release my kid to their father. It's like, well, can I not release your kid to you?
Right. Yeah. I'm not. How like. Yeah. I couldn't even imagine like if I was going to get one of my kids and like y'all just was like, yeah, you can't come get him. Like.
I never want to be in that position.
Yeah, because
I
like
never want to be in that position. I say if you
that's a
don't want
bad
him to get
situation.
him, don't send him that day. Like, because I can't tell you that I'm not gonna release them.
Have y'all ever found y'all like if y'all was familiar with both parents, like ever y'all found yourself in a situation where y'all try to mediate between the two parties, or no? Y'all just it's their state business.
Um, we try to keep it business. In the past, we did try to mediate, but it always backfired. And so
Okay.
it's best to kind of just give resources. Listen, if you need supports, these are the people in place that kind of could help you. We can no longer kind of deal with those individual kind of concerns. We could just give out resources. It's very draining,
Yeah.
especially when you have so many other issues that you have to deal with. You can't really be a mediator in that sense to that
Okay.
type of situation, because we all know that domestics is something just totally
Yeah.
different, and so that's a touchy
You.
situation. You just don't touch on that.
Yeah. Very much so. Are y'all like? Would you be able to tell the difference in a kid that like came from a two-parent household or a one-parent household? Like, can you tell off the bat without like asking the parent? Like, is there anything that you notice in that kid? Any differences that you notice in them children?
I'm gonna say no, and you know why I'm gonna say no? Because you can have a two parent household, but you can have some dysfunctional
That's a
people
fact.
in a home,
That
right?
is very
And so
much a
it can
fact.
look like a one parent household. Um, but if again, it's those parenting styles. It's those parenting styles, and so it's like I wouldn't say that I could always notice a child that's from a two parent household, as opposed to not a two parent
I'm
household.
glad you acknowledged that.
Yeah.
Because people really think like if it's two parents in the house, my household automatically better.
Oh
Then,
no.
yeah, and that's
Oh
like
my
the
gosh.
furthest thing from the truth.
Mm-mm. Just imagine just being in a household with two people who just cannot come to terms with on anything. I
Right.
mean, the confusion that the kid witnessed, the confusion that the kid holds internally because they can't even communicate it. It's like they take all of that and they have no outlet. It's a lot of dysfunction. They come to the center and then you see them being aggressive. You see them doing all kind of things like a pre-bully stage, like they're doing these things as a cry, as an outlet, because they don't have that at home because of the confusion. So I mean, no, you can't really tell.
Right.
No, just talk to me a little bit. Why is it so important for your centers to honor fathers?
Well, it's important because children need their fathers. I mean, the balance that a father gives is unmatched. I think about myself, and everything that I do with the program. I think, what would I want for myself? What would I want for my children? I know me. I grew up. My father wasn't really there much. My father spent a lot of time in and out of prison, and so I felt like when we have fathers there, we definitely want to honor them, acknowledge them. Like we give our awards at the end of the year, things like that, because we know that their presence is very much needed. It's so important. Um, and it's not to take away from the mother, but you can't compare the two. They each offer something different, and children need them both.
Right. Right.
No,
So though you got that stump look on your face. Don't do that.
no,
She bodying it.
no. I just no. I'm
Definitely
excited
bodying
to hear that.
it.
I wasn't always a parent, and I
Hmm.
took a lot of these things for granted. So to hear that,
Hmm.
we a podcast that champion dad. So like to even hear, that you give out awards and stuff like that. That's really, I really really like that.
I need to send my kid
You better.
there. I need an award. Um, we ain't really even talk about you and your kids.
Oh, okay.
So like, what type of activities you like to do with your kids? What they like? What they into?
Oh, my kids, my kids, my kids. My kids, we like traveling. We do a lot of traveling. I just go off of what their interests are. You
Okay.
know, they want to do cheerleading. They want to do, well, not they. My daughter want to do cheerleading. My son likes basketball. He likes boxing. So, whatever their interest is, I kind of just, go that route. I just believe that, you gotta let your child kind of lead. And for a long time, I was the type of parent who I felt that not it was my way or the highway, because I wasn't that type of parent, but because how life was, I just had to keep a lot of control in order
Okay.
to function, right? And so now I'm at a place where I could allow them to explore who they are and who they want to be, and just kind of like, you know, help them experience those things.
That's dope.
So just as a young entrepreneur, talk about the importance of having like a strong support system that allowed you to, as a young mom, step out and be a business owner. Talk about the importance of that.
Right. So when I started my business, I was 21. I had my first child at 22. Um, and so that was challenging. I look back at it, and I mean, I'm happy that I experienced all that I experienced. But, when I think about it, like I was growing up while raising my child, while learning how to operate a business.
Right.
I mean, that was like heavy. And so, now I'm in a place, but I had support. I had a lot of support. My mother, my grandmother, um, the people that worked for me, they
Right.
were like a big support as well. Like they would come up to the kids' schools and things like that. My uncle, I had a lot of people who supported me, and I think that's definitely like the reason that I'm able to be in the position that I am today. If it wasn't for their support.
So Yeah, support system's definitely crazy. You be
Mhm.
needing that. So you was starting the business and you had a newborn. So your kid was at the center?
Yes. So my two oldest, they were with me in the office until they turned about like 18 months, and then I put them in the classroom.
Okay.
So they were with me the whole time. Now my youngest son, I did not put him in child care. I got a nanny, and I just went
Wow.
back to work in 3 months. Huh?
Wow.
Why did I get it? Um,
That's like not something that we talk about really in our community like
I
that.
know,
That's
I
like I'm
know.
just curious.
Um, I don't know. I just did things different for him.
Right.
I
It's because you was in a different place. You
I'm
just
in a
wanted to
different
try
place.
something different.
I'm in a different place. Like, I mean, I had a home birth with him. Like, I did everything
Oh
different with
man,
him.
you're the whole different bag, mom.
Right.
I did everything different with him. It was certain things that I wanted to experience. Just being in a
Okay.
different place where I wasn't no longer like trying to survive, like I was living,
Okay.
right?
Right.
But I did a nanny for him because I did not want him to attend my center. We no longer were servicing infants and toddlers, so he couldn't go there.
Okay.
And I didn't see no place else for him that I
Okay.
would want to put him in. And so I thought it was just best for him to be in my home with a trusted person and still had that support still in the home. My husband works a lot, so I mean, she cook, clean, the whole nine. So when I come home, now I'm even more, I get a minute to myself, and then I'm able to engage my children because I
Right.
don't have to worry about cooking. I don't have to worry about cleaning. Like she did all of that stuff. So when I see my baby, I'm like, okay, I'm
That's dope.
happy. We could go outside. We could do certain things because a lot of my daily tasks is eliminated.
Right. That's hard.
I need that.
That's hard.
When I finish with her, I give you the number.
She said you can't take her right now, bro.
No, I need to be able to afford a nanny, dog. That might be like the next level up. It's like being able to get a nanny, bro.
She talking different, bro.
Yeah, that's that business owner
Yeah,
bag
she
right
talk-
there.
she
My
talk-
fault.
I mean, it's
She talking different.
you know what people say. It's like when you get to a certain level, you have to do things differently. Like you can no longer do the things the same way you did. I mean, I was like chasing my tail, trying to be everything to everybody. So now I just do a lot of things that kind of like create peace in my
You work
life,
smart.
right?
Yeah, just work
And
smart.
sometimes they come at a hefty expense, but the peace of mind is so
Priceless.
much.
It's
Oh,
priceless.
yeah.
No, I ain't got nothing else, bro.
No, she body that I'm.
You got anything else you want to get off?
Yeah,
you
you
know,
wanna
you
leave the
want to
people-
tell
you
everybody
wanna
where they
leave
can
the
find
people
you
with
at?
something?
Yes. Okay. So the name of my center is Smart Beginnings Early Learning Center. We are located at 5829 West Master Street. We are a Star 4 facility. You can find us on the internet at www.smartbeginningselc.com as well as Instagram at Smart Beginnings ELC. I'm sorry. Yeah, and that's it. You know, follow us, like us, all that.
Bring
We
your-
got a lot
bring
of
your
good things
kids.
coming up. Yeah, bring your kids. We got a lot of great programs.
If you got all the daycare questions, or I mean all the child center questions, make sure you direct them to her.
Please do.
Yeah,
Fill the comments with them because I'm sure I didn't get to them all.
that's a fact. We
It's-
appreciate you for
Thank
coming.
you.
We
I
appreciate
was.
you.
This wasn't that bad.
It
We
wasn't.
told you
It
it wasn't
wasn't
gonna be
that
that bad. You over here looking all
super nervous.
Right.
And,
Yes.
you killed this and
Right,
stole
you
this.
bodied this.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, thank
This
you.
might be one of our favorites.
You know, thank everybody for listening and watching. Until next time.
We out.
Join the More Than a Dad family by following us on Instagram, subscribing to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to join our Facebook group for daily questions, motivation, dad jokes, and new dad tips. If you enjoy our podcast, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Be sure to like, comment, and share our content with other parents. Last but not least, make sure you check out our new merch. The link is in the bio of our Instagram as well as the description of this YouTube video. We are truly grateful and thanks for supporting More Than a Dad.
More than a dot. that, more than that.